Hello, my name is Dr. Yaya Sissoko. Today we are going to talk about Chapter 9, Winners and Losers from Trade. To find out the winner and loser from trade, we're going to begin with the exporting countries. So, where the domestic equilibrium price is below, so the world price before trade. Once trade is allowed, so domestic price will start rising to equal the world price. Because price is going up, domestic producer will produce more to take advantage of the increase in the price. Therefore, the domestic quantity supply is greater than the domestic quantity demanded. So the difference between these two is export. So domestic producer will export the surplus of production they have to foreign country. Figure number two deal with the international trade in an exporting country. Using the example of textile, we're going to, label the price of textile on the vertical axis or y-axis, the quantity of textile on the horizontal axis or the x-axis. The domestic supply is the upward sloping positive slope of supply curve. The domestic demand of textile is the downward sloping negative slope of demand curve. The two curves intersect at this point. This allows us to find the equilibrium price on the y-axis. So before trade, the consumer surplus is area A and plus area B. The producer surplus is area C. The total surplus in the economy will be A plus B plus C, which is the total, consumer surplus plus producer surplus will give you the total surplus. So with trade, the world price is above the domestic price. So because the world price is above the domestic price, domestic producer will start increasing the production. So the total quantity supply, domestic quantity supply will increase, which is greater than the domestic quantity demanded. So because the supply is greater than the demand, producer will export the surplus to go to foreign country. So now with trade, the consumer surplus is only A, and producer surplus is going to be B plus C plus D. And the total, surplus in the economy will be, A plus B plus C plus D. So therefore, therefore, so with trade, the welfare of the economy will increase. In that case, D will be, the additional surplus so that, so that the country will benefit from that. So, and then this indicates that with trade, the economic well-being of a country will, as a whole will increase. We can conclude from the graph that the exporting country before trade, the consumer surplus was higher than the consumer surplus, after trade. But however, the producer surplus after trade is higher than producer surplus before trade. Therefore, the total surplus, which is, consumer surplus plus producer surplus will be higher after trade than the one before trade. So the so the well-being of the country as a whole will increase in that sense. To summarize, for an exporting country with international trade, domestic producers are better off Domestic, consumer are worse off. Trade raises the economic well-being of the nation. The gain by the winner, domestic producer, exceed the loss by the loser, domestic consumer. So this will benefit everyone. That's why the economic well-being will increase. Now let's focus our attention to the importing countries, where the domestic equilibrium price before trade is above the world price. Once trade is allowed, domestic price drops to equal the world price. So domestic quantity supply is less than domestic quantity demanded. So the difference between these two is going to be import. Figure number three is exactly the opposite of figure number two. In in figure three, with international trade of an important country, we are still using the example of textile. The price of textile is on the y-axis or vertical axis. The quantity demanded of textile is on the horizontal axis or x-axis. The domestic supply of textile is a positive slope, and the domestic demand of textile is a downward sloping negative slope. The two curves intercept at this point, which lead to the equilibrium price before trade. Before trade, then the consumer surplus equal to area A only. The producer surplus equal to area A plus area C. Now with trade, the world price is below, the domestic price. So because price is lower, producer will decrease the quantity supply, which is this much, and then buyer would increase the quantity demanded, which is that much. The difference between these two, the quantity supply and the quantity demanded, will be imports. So with trade, the the producer surplus is only area C now. The consumer surplus will increase and then will be area A plus B plus D. The total surplus would be area A plus B plus C plus D. This indicates that with trade, total surplus rises by an amount equal to area D, which is D, and then indicating that trade raises the economic well-being of the country as a whole. And then this can be shown on this table here. Area D will be the increase of the total surplus. To summarize figure number three, for the importing countries, consumer surplus is higher, with international trade than the consumer surplus before trade, and producer surplus is smaller with international trade than the producer surplus before trade. Therefore, the total surplus is higher with international trade than the total surplus before trade, which will lead to an increase in the economic well-being. So everybody will benefit from trade, even if the country is importing. In summary, for importing country with international trade, domestic producer of the good are worse off. This was the opposite of so exporting country where the domestic producer was better off. Domestic consumer are better off. For the exporting country, domestic consumer were worse off. So trade raise the economic well-being of a nation. The gain for the winner exceed the losses of the loser. So trade can make everyone better off. Importing country is better off, exporting country is better off. Trade is good for everyone. Tariff is defined as tax on the good produced abroad and sold domestically. Free trade, on the other hand, domestic price equal to the world price. Tariff on imported goods raises the domestic price above the world price by the amount of the tariff. Figure number 4 show the effect of a tariff. Looking at the market for textile, so the equilibrium is reached where the world price equal to the domestic price without tariff. So at this price, the quantity supply in the market is Q1S, the domestic quantity supply, and then the domestic quantity demanded is Q1D. The difference between these two is import without tariff. So the consumer surplus is area A and C, and in this area, the producer surplus is only area G. By imposing a tariff on the imported good, so the new price will be the price with tariff at this point. So it's going to be the world price plus the tariff. So at this new equilibrium price with tariff, the quantity supply is Q to S. The quantity demanded is Q to D. So the difference between these two is the import with tariff. You can see that with the tariff, the quantity the supply so increases, the quantity demanded decreases. So the surplus here with the consumer surplus will be area A plus area B. So the producer surplus is going to be area G, area C plus area C. So you can see that and the government revenue with the tariff is area E. So the total surplus then will be area A plus B plus C plus G and plus D. So plus E. So area D and area F are lost to the society. These are called deadwall loss from the tariff. We can see that A, D plus F would be represent the deadwall loss of the tariff. So the effect of a tariff is to reduce the quantity of import, move the domestic market closer to the equilibrium without trade. Domestic sellers are better off, domestic buyers are worse off. So with the tariff, the consumer surplus is smaller than the consumer surplus before the tariff. The producer surplus is bigger than the producer surplus before the tariff. The government collect tax revenue before government tax revenue was known. So the total surplus is smaller as compared to the total surplus before the tariff.